All right, here's what we got going on. This is a Gen 1 b58. This is the 440i. My alternator pulley here, it's going out. You see a bunch of bearing material in there. It's been making weird noise the past few days. I thought it was the idler pulley. Turns out it's the alternator. I should have investigated more. The belt already fell off when I was driving. I'm going to show you guys how to take off the alternator and put on the new one. So right off the bat, we got to take off this pipe right here. There's 3 screws, 2 up top and 1 underneath. I'm going to see if I can show you it. So there it is. It's going to be a T30 Torx bit. It looks like this. T30. And you're just going to want to loosen these up here. I took out those bolts, and as you can see, it comes right off after that. Make sure not to drop anything in there. You see the throttle body in there. Next, we're going to have to take off these 2 clips right here. This one looks like it's just a squeeze and pull, so I'm going to go ahead and take these 2 out. All right, so for these 2 clips right here, what I actually ended up doing was taking a flathead into them and just slightly twisting it up to prop the clip up. And then what you do after that is apply backwards pressure and pull and wiggle it out at the same time. And that's how you take both of these 2 sensors out. So I was kind of doing some exploring. I was hoping I wouldn't have to remove the entire charge pipe, but I was trying to kind of wiggle it out of the way. I don't want to put too much pressure on this right here. This is just a little rubber boot piece that connects the 2 pipes. And I feel like if I bend back on it too much, it's going to rip, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to end up taking out the air box, and I'm going to take off the charge pipe. So first we got to take off the air box. There is a clip up here. I already took it off. It's the same style clip as the other 2 clips we just took off. So again, screwdriver, twist, and then wiggle it out. And this is just held in with grommets. I already kind of got this one a little loose, so you kind of just slowly wiggle it upwards and it will all come out. Before you do that, though, you do have to disconnect the inlet here. This is from the air box that actually leads down to everything. You see how it all comes together down there and then into the throttle body. So yeah, we have to take off this first. So just remember to take off this and the mass airflow sensor, and then you can wiggle off the air box. Got the air box out. Next, we're going to have to remove this piece that connects to the air box. There is another hose clamp down there. You can kind of see it if the camera will focus. I don't know. It's right. Oh, yeah, you can kind of see it. It's right there. It's just a 7mm, like a normal hose clamp like this one here. Should be able to take it off kind of easy. It's just a difficult area to access. I got that piece off. Here's the hose clamp. So same one as up top. It was kind of hard to wiggle off. I kind of had to grip it from underneath and then just loosen off one side, and then the other side followed. But I'm going to show you what you have to remove next. It should be 2 vacuum lines. All right, so here's the first line you got to remove. This clip is really annoying, so I'm going to try to get a better angle on it here. You have to pinch it from the top and the bottom, and you're going to wiggle it out. So this is what the top, ow, that's still hot. This is what the top area looks like, and then there's another half of it right down here. As you can see, it goes up to your turbo. If you haven't seen your turbo before, get a good look. Cold side, hot side. You see everything connects down there in the middle, feeding it into your throttle body. So yeah, that's what we got to disconnect next. All right, so I took off the top half here, and I found out that the easiest way to do it is kind of imagine you're trying to just bulge out the sides by squeezing the top and bottom as much as possible. When I was disconnecting it, I took it off at an odd angle, and it was kind of like this, but a little bit more in. And I was able to just kind of squeeze it out like that. And I discovered that for down here, see if I can get the best angle. So we don't actually have to disconnect it from over here. All we have to do is disconnect this clip. And this is the same clip that you use for the screwdriver that we've done, you know, like 3 times already to get here. And then we're able to take out this big plastic piece and actually get to the charge pipe so we can unbolt it from the front. And then we can get to the alternator. So it's a lot of work to get to the alternator. I've been kind of discovering it as I go, if you can't tell. So yeah, I've never actually done this before, but I have taken out an alternator. I actually did a few days ago. Different car, but you know, same thing, just a Beamer, but which makes it obviously infinitely more complicated. But yeah, something I forgot to note earlier is to put a rag into your inlet here that sucks up all the air. You don't want any dirt or debris falling into that. It can get sucked up into your engine. You know, we already took out the air filter, so there's nothing to filter it. And the last thing you would want at this point is to blow up your engine, because I'm sure your alternator already went out, or else you probably wouldn't be watching this. So don't let anything go into any of this piping here. Alrighty, so right over here, there's one more of this kind of style connector. It's the exact same way, taking it on and off. Try to get some better lighting over there. I already took it off, as you can see, but it goes right there on the other side of the intake tubing. Next, I already got a little loose, but this is the cold side of the turbo. This is a kind of like a C ring. I don't really know how to describe it, but basically I got a pick down there and I pulled up on this metal piece here. Sorry for it being blurry, but I pulled up on this metal piece and I kind of just pulled it out and kind of twisted it so it wouldn't fall back in. And now I'm just going to try to wiggle off the rest of this piping, and we should have access to the charge pipe after that. Access to that part of the turbo there, and I'm going to show you exactly how I took that clamp off. I'm just going to bring it over here to the bench, make a little bit of room. So this is the C clamp that was there. It just goes over the charge piping here, and you can see the rag in there just to keep everything safe. But essentially, all I did was I just pulled up on it really hard. I got a pick tool in between the C clamp and the little plastic over here, and then I used some needle nose pliers to just pull it all the way out. So now we're gonna have to start getting the actual charge piping off so we can get access to the alternator. This is what I ended up doing with all of that piping out of the way. I've been researching it, and there's a little black plastic clip down there where the charge pipe meets. I don't know if I can get a good angle on it, but that little plastic clip right there in the center of the screen, you have to break that to take it off. So I don't have a replacement. I don't want to wait for one. I ended up just using the available space I've made to be able to pivot this arm just enough to get me access to the alternator, so I can take it off now and see if I can. My goal would be to try to fix this pulley if I can, rather than replacing it. But if I have to replace it, I will. It's just a little bit more than I would like to spend, but I'll do what I have to do to get this working. Alrighty, so I'm going to be replacing this idler pulley as well as the alternator. I already ordered this and a new belt. You can see my belt is nice and shredded up into all of the little pulley systems here, so I'm going to have to clean that out at some point before I put it in. But for now, taking this off, it looks like 3 screws, 1, 2, and 3 down there. 13 millimeter, yeah, 13 right in there. Idler pulley, which is this, should be able to just come right off, and then we should be able to get to the alternator. I went ahead and I took off the idler pulley. Now we're just left with the alternator. I didn't show how to take off those bolts because they're pretty straightforward. So it looks like I see 2 bolts here, so 1 and 2. So they look like they're E-torque bits, or E whatever you call them. So I'm gonna find out what size it is. All right, so for the 2 bolts, it was an E12. One of them was right here, which is the shorter bolt. And then there is a much longer bolt that goes right down here. You just barely have enough room between here and the radiator fan to clear it out of there. Luckily, you don't have to take the fan off so far to take out the alternator. And I'm gonna see if I can wiggle it loose, or if there's a bolt that I cannot see. Okay, I was definitely forgetting something, so I'm gonna see if I can switch the light here. Right down here, I'm gonna move my flashlight. Right down there, there is this is behind the alternator. There is a, looks like a negative cable, and then a clip that actually clips into the alternator. I'm gonna try to show you a little bit better when I get it off, because I cannot get my camera into here, but there's some stuff on the back of the alternator, and you're just gonna have to try to wiggle down. So here's the front of the alternator, if anything's gonna focus today. All right, perfect. So front of the alternator, come around to the back, and you see that red cable there. I'm gonna try to zoom in. That red cable, and I believe there's a clip, yeah, right below it there. And I think that's the only 2 There's not really a lot of videos going over how to take out the alternator, which is what I'm doing here, but I'm pretty sure it's just those two. If I find any more, I will document it. So first thing, I'm gonna kind of put the camera in a weird spot here, but alternator on your left here, try to zoom in, if I can focus on it. There's a clip right here. You see that little purple wire leading into it? You're gonna have to take this off. It's on the back of the alternator. If I wiggle the alternator, you can see it moves with it. And then there's this, I already took this one off, but this looks like it's either into the negative or the positive terminal to the alternator. This is a 13 millimeter. You need a deep socket. I got it from through here. I just use the right length extension. I was able to line up the ratchet with this and just get it off. So yeah, there's that one, and then that clip, and then I believe it should be able to come out. You don't want to take out the alternator first. That wire, that purple one, is very thin and it's very short, so you definitely want to disconnect it first. I've decided, in order to get better access to the wire back there, I'm going to take off the throttle body because this big side piecing to it is preventing me from getting a lot of access. Worst comes to worst, I'm gonna have to take off maybe one of the coolant reservoir tanks or something. I'm really hoping I don't have to do that, so I'm gonna try to just take this off. It's 10 millimeters, 1, 2, and 3. So it looks like that should be pretty easy. And then also this this cable back here as well, which is pretty easy to get to. All right, so with the throttle body off, I do need to put a rag here to cap that off, and here's what the sensor looked like in the back. I was able to just unbolt it, and then I used my needle nose pliers here to take off the sensor. It was a little hard to push down the tab and pull it out at the same time. And then I was able to access the sensor on the back of the alternator right here. This is what it looks like. I was able to get it out. If you're able to kind of work around the throttle body, then you don't have to take it off, but I think it's easy enough to take off. It's kind of just worth it. You also get better access to this cable here, and you can also just see back here better. The alternator still kind of feels stuck in here, so I'm thinking I'm missing a bolt, but I don't know where it is, and I don't see anything back here holding it in. So I'll have to investigate, maybe do a little bit of research and see what I can find. All right, the alternator is out of the car, but I do have bad news. So one, to get it out, I had to do a little bit of persuasion with my favorite tool. All right, sorry. Dog break. Anyways, and as you can see here, the part that hooks up to the alternator did take a tiny bit of damage. I'm not really concerned about that. This surface is still pretty flat. It's just a little scrapage. But so the alternator, the bottom bolt goes down here all the way through this. So the alternator goes on it like this, right? And the only way to get the alternator out is by rotating it just a tiny bit like this, so that the part clamping it can move this way and come out. Otherwise, you're trying to pull it out when it's still clamped like this, even though the bolt is out. I'll show you the actual alternator just so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's that clampage. As you can see, it took a little bit of damage on here as well, but you see how it's clamping right here like this. So that part is preventing it from coming straight out. And I don't know if I'll be able to get a new alternator in without, this is not a BMW alternator. Just ignore this. That's from a different car. But so I think you have to take off the intake manifold. I really don't want to, especially since I'd have to take off all of this here and then unbolt it when there's nothing wrong with the intake manifold. The only thing is, I do plan on replacing the oil filter housing to an aluminum one. I want to do that upgrade. And for that, I'm pretty sure you have to take off the manifold, or at least most of this stuff here. So I might go ahead and do that. But technically, since I took it out, it is possible to put it back in. So yeah, I do have to order the alternator. But Yeah, remember to rag off these areas here, as you see in those two areas. What else? Oh, I didn't mention this earlier, but I was labeling all the bolts in a bag. So like these are for the charge pipe, just so I don't lose any of my bolts. And I found that to be very helpful. I'm also replacing this. So I mean, if you're doing all this effort, I recommend upgrading a few things. So if you plan on doing things in the future, maybe like charge pipe, aluminum oil filter housing, that kind of stuff. So I don't have the new alternator in, so I'm just gonna upload this video of taking it out, and then when the new one comes in, I'll make a new one of putting everything back in. So that's it for now.